Hello, Richie V here, and today I'm going to do something different. I'm going to be taking a white privilege test. That's right. I figure, why not? I'm a Native American. There's a little bit more to it than that. I was adopted. All I know is that my mom was full-blooded Tulalip Indian. As for the rest of me, I don't know what the rest of me is. I just know I'm half Native American, which does count as Native American. I look at myself in the mirror, though. I'm pretty much a mutt. That's what I think. If you don't know, it's a Bill Murray thing.
Very different people. We're not Watusi. We're not Spartans. We're Americans with a capital A, huh? You know what that means? Do you? That means that our forefathers were kicked out of every decent country in the world. We are the wretched refuse. We're the underdog. We're mutts.
I don't talk about race too much, but when I meet people, any American that's been in here in the country for any length of time, I mean their family, their heritage, everybody seems to have Native American in them. Everybody is part Native American like me. So I said, well, as a Native American or half, why don't I take this to see if I have white privilege? And I'm really hoping, it would be nice to know that we're included too. One last thing. I saw that I was watching a reaction channel, Brad and Lex, and they took this test, and it looked like a lot of fun. They only made it halfway through this because they're black and they were kind of offended by some of these questions. I'm a little more easygoing, so I'm kind of gonna come at this with an open mind. So, but we'll see. Okay, so let's read the definition according to this test of what white privilege is. White privilege, an invisible package of unearned assets which I count on cashing in each day, but about which I was meant to remain oblivious. White privilege is like an invisible, weightless knapsack of special provisions, maps, passports, code books. I'm not sure what that means. I know what a code book is. I'm not sure. Visas, clothes, tools, and blank checks. Okay. I'm not sure what they meant by code books, unless it's like a code to get in a door, maybe, and you have a code that will open. Well, that's probably what they mean, yeah. Maybe I just had to think about it a second. Visas is like a passport. A visa is a passport. But they already said passport. I think they're doubling up on some of this stuff. Okay, so I get you have these privileges as a white person that you don't know that you have, but you use every day. If you could use an analogy to that is like maybe a really hot girl, and she gets a flat tire, and immediately somebody will pull over. Oh, may I help you, miss? Or they're going in the store, and she's a little low on money, and all the guys are like, hey, here, take some money. Here, let me pay for that. Oh, here's some flowers. It's like this invisible backpack of assets that you can use, but maybe if you're like a really hot woman, you don't even know it because that's been your whole experience. So, so obviously there's beauty privilege, And by the way, I used white like hot woman, but I assume it works for hot guys. I wouldn't know, but I'm saying it probably works both genders anyway. Let's take a look at this test. Let's start with question number 1. Let me move this up a little. Okay. Question number 1. I can arrange to be in the company of people of my race most of the time. Well, yes. My best friend Bob, who I've mentioned before, he's Mexican, but he has a big part of Aztec in him. He's part Aztec, and we hang out all the time. We're just hang out. We'll watch a movie or do whatever, and he'll be on the channel at some point. And so, well, yeah, and plus most Americans have a lot of Native American in them, so that's no problem. So, I'm 1 for 1. That's cool. I can go shopping alone most of the time, pretty well assured that I will not be followed or harassed. Well, now this one is a little different because most of my time when I was growing up in the service or here in Texas, I have no problem with this. None. When I lived in California, though, I carried a backpack around a lot. And some stores would even make you put the backpack in like a shelf or something. I think it was Food for Less or something like that. They had these shelves you had to put the backpack. But if I was around the store with a backpack, then I would get followed. But I'm pretty sure since this is a race thing, they were following around because I had a backpack on, not because of my race. Because it's never happened, like, it doesn't happen here in Texas. It doesn't happen in Washington State where I grew up, or in Hawaii when I was in the service. So I'm going to say, yes, I can shop alone most of the time and not be followed. Cha-ching! Okay, that's 2. I'm 2 for 2. I'm doing really well on this test. I can turn on the television or open the front page of the paper and see people of my race widely represented. Yes, I can actually, because like I said, almost anybody you see on TV will be part Native American. It's just we're Americans. Everybody in America has some percentage of Native American in them. So yes, absolutely. You ask them, anybody on those actors, black, white, Hispanic, almost all of them have Native American in them. So 3 for 3. Woohoo! I don't think I'll get 100% on this, but if I can get a good 70, 75, that would be great. Okay, number 4. When I'm told about our national heritage or about civilization, I'm shown that people of my color made it what it is. Absolutely. In fact, they would in Washington State they mandated that you have Native American history. Now, if I lived in Europe, I doubt I'd get much talk about Native American. But here in America, yeah, everything. And you get like these movies, like I Buried My Heart at Wounded Knee, and the pyramids down in Mexico, and then some of the nations that lived in America before the Europeans came. So yes, definitely 100%. Cha-ching! Number 4. I'm 4 out of 4. I can be sure that my children will be given, I don't have children, but I can be given curriculum material, curricular materials that testify to the existence of my race. Yes, absolutely. I've never been told that my race doesn't exist. I've never seen it implied. And again, when you go through American history, it is full of the existence of the nations, the previous nations that were here. And I like that term. Normally when you get some politically correct terms, it's like you roll your eyes. But I think it's called, what is it called? Because it's not Native American anymore. It used to be Indian, and it's Native American, First Nations. And that's actually more true because Native Americans were, they weren't one people. They were separate nations. The Sioux were the Sioux, and the Cherokee were the Cherokee, and the Comanches were the Comanches, and and the Tulalip people were the Tulalip people, and they were their own nations. It wasn't like there was one people that lived here. People say, "Oh, this land was the Native American land." Well, actually, no. It's like Europe. This is England's land, and this is France's land. This is German land, or Africa. That you would probably have different tribes, and that was their land. Okay, so yeah, I've never been told my race didn't exist, and the history books in America anyway are full of Native American history. Okay, so great, 5 of 5. Cha-ching. Okay, I can go into a music shop and count on finding the music of my race represented into a supermarket, and find the foods I grew up with into the hairdresser shop, and find someone who can deal with my hair. 2 out of 3. I'm going to count this as a cha-ching. So, cha-ching, number 6. 6 out of 6, but I had to go into that. Can I go into a music shop and count on finding the music of my race represented? No, I cannot. I've never heard, well, no, that's not true. I have heard Redbone being played. Come and get your love. Redbone, great band, and they have more than those hits if you go dig a little deeper. Point is, that one's absolutely not. I've never heard Native American music played at Albertsons. Okay, but they asked 3 questions here. That's why I'm counting this as a win. I say yes. Woohoo! Because into a store and find the foods I grew up with. Yes, I absolutely can. I find hamburger meat there, hot dogs. I grew up on hamburgers, hot dogs. My mom would make tuna fish and noodles. You get the and now I make it the same way. You get she used egg noodles, and then she would use Campbell's soup and mix it in, and maybe put some vegetables even in it, and then she put the tuna in it, and then heat it up. So. And then fried chicken. We had a lot. My mom, we used to actually fry fried chicken. So yes, definitely I can find all that stuff in the supermarket, and into a hairdresser shop and find someone who can deal with my hair. Yes, although I got you can't tell because I make sure to wear this beanie, but I got a little bit of a bad haircut last time. But normally, as long as the hairdresser's a little older, I always say. When I go into the hairdresser, make me look like Scott Baio, right? If you know who Scott Baio is, you immediately know the hairstyle I'm talking about. And then they say, well, we can't work miracles, but we can do the haircut. 90% of the time, when I tell them make me look like Scott Baio, they get it, and then my hair looks nice. My hair doesn't do the Scott Baio thing, but it's a lot better than if I don't tell them that. It's just, this is what I want. So yes, definitely 2 out of 3. So I count that as a cha-ching, 6 of 6. Whether I use checks, credit cards, or cash, I can count on my skin color not to work against the appearance of financial responsibility. And again, this is where it kind of, these questions are a little racist themselves. I know sometimes people get so anti-racist that they become kind of, it's implying, this question implies something that I'm not going to go into. No, I've never had that problem. I know whether I pull out cash, pay with a card, or whatever. When I bought my car, I didn't have a problem. I've never had a problem with this. As long as the check card goes through, they're happy. So no, never had that problem. That's 7 out of 7. Cha-ching! I'm doing really good. I'm not made acutely aware that my shape, bearing, or body odor. Oh, really, that's the question. Will be taken as a reflection on my race. No, that has never happened to me. 8. Ching! I'm 8 of 8. I can worry about racism without being seen as self-interested or self-seeking. Yeah, I can. It's an issue. Things like slavery and what else? The way the Chinese, when they first came here, there's definitely some racism in the country. Not as bad as some of the other places. Like China was, they consider themselves to be the middle kingdom. Basically, what it is you have heaven, you have earth, and China's here. So basically, China they consider themselves to be the master race, not unlike some other countries that have done that. Anyway, so there's a lot of racism in the world. I can reflect on that racism without feeling that somehow I'm being self-serving. So yeah, if I talk about slavery or anything like that, no one ever thinks I'm being self-serving. That's number 9. I'm 9 of 9. Yes. I can take a job or enroll in a college with an affirmative action policy without having my coworkers or my peers assume I got it because of my race. I've never had this issue. After the service, I went to a technical college. The jobs I've had, I've never... I don't think anybody's thought that. So I'm going to count this as a win. Cha-ching, number 10. But this isn't really white privilege, I don't think. This is a problem with affirmative action, is that the good part is you're promoting more jobs. If you have higher unemployment with some minorities, or maybe there's not enough minorities represented in college, the affirmative action is meant to bring that up. And so when companies or colleges, or workplaces, they specifically hire people based on race, people will start to assume if you're of this race, then maybe you got it because of affirmative action. That's just the negative side effect of affirmative action. It has the positive side, but to every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So that's it. So this to me isn't a white privilege question. For every action, there's a reaction. I can be late to a meeting without having the lateness reflect on my race. I don't try to be late. I try to be on time. But I've never had somebody who has late say, "You Native Americans, you're always late." 11 of 11. Cha-ching! I can choose public accommodations without fearing that people of my race cannot get in or will be mistreated. Funnily enough, a couple years ago, I went on a trip. I decided to take my car, just me on the road. Never had an issue with the hotel. Never, not one time. I'm never asked to speak for all the people of my racial group. Oh, sorry. 12 of 12. Ching! Okay. I am never asked to speak for all the people of my racial group. Trust me, I have never and will never be asked to speak on behalf of the entire Native American race or biracial people. You used to be called half-breed. There was a cool Cher song, by the way, called Half-Breed. You should check it out. It's really good. I think it was a bigger deal back in the old days when Cher was singing Half-Breed. I think she was talking about, she was even talking about days before where somebody was half, I think in her case, half white, half Indian. And it was a big deal back then. I've never had an issue with it. No one's ever made an issue of it with me. So, but trust me, I have never spoken on or nor been asked to speak on the behalf of all Native Americans. 13 of 13. Cha-ching! I can be pretty sure that if I asked to talk with the person in charge, I will be facing a person of my race. Again, I found everybody has Native American in them. If you get to the boss and you had a personal conversation and you asked them what the race is, I bet they would say, I have some Sioux Indian in me. If a traffic cop pulls me over this is two completely different things. At least these should have been, maybe because they only wanted 20, but these things are just like completely opposite things. If a traffic cop pulls me over, or if the IRS audits my tax returns, I can be sure I haven't been singled out because of my race. This is a completely different thing. I'm going to answer the question, but I have to ask what a poor question this is. Here's the problem with this question. A traffic cop sees you. Well, sometimes. Sometimes they're just doing radar or whatever. And they don't even know who's in the car. But sometimes they will see you, and I know about that. The IRS just sees your name. If your name's Emmett Smith, actually, I guess they would know what color his skin is because he's famous. But you know what I mean. Not every person who is Native American, not every person who's black or Hispanic has a name that reflects that. So the IRS doesn't see you. So it's apples and oranges whether IRS audits you because of your race or because a cop pulls you over. So these should have been two questions. I'm just gonna skip the IRS. That's never happened. I've never had any. I've never been audited. So obviously no. The answer is no because I've never been audited. So if they were audited because of my race, and I've never been audited, then the answer is no. That hasn't happened to me. But the traffic cop pulling me over, that's another story. I got a story to tell. So I used to work at a music rehearsal place in California. This is the 90s, late 90s. I was carless. Not Carlos, carless. And so I would go there, and it was a little ways away, and so I would get rides a lot of the time. And my boss, George Acuna, or if we were doing a Spanish gig, because he was Hispanic, it would be Jorge Acuna. Right? He's Hispanic. He owned the business because it wasn't just a rehearsal studio. It was a backline studio. Backline is where a band would come into town, and they would say, I need this type of amps, this kind of drums, this kind of bass amp, this kind of microphones. And then we would provide it for them. This is beyond just the rehearsal studio part. My friend Bob, now he is also Hispanic or Mexican. I think he just says Mexican. He grew up in East LA. He's proud to be Latino. I had two different experiences. Jorge, was a businessman. He had a nice car, and sometimes I would work late, and he'd give me a ride home after the buses were done, because I had to work late quite a bit. And he'd give me a ride home, and it was really nice of him, and I appreciated it. Never had any trouble, even though he's Hispanic and I'm Native American. No problem. We go right down Azusa Street, all the way down Azusa Street until he got to the house, and never once got pulled over. My friend Bob and me, on the other hand, musicians, long hair, and Bob at the time was driving this van, this beat up old van with the ugliest color of brown. Imagine the Scooby-Doo van, but just the worst color brown instead of that stuff on the side, the colorful stuff. And imagine there's rust on it, and maybe there's a little bit too much smoke coming out of it. Maybe a better example would be the van in Up in Smoke, the Cheech and Chong movie. And every time we would get pulled over. Like every time we would see a cop, they would immediately it was almost like they had guided missiles. It was like they were do, and they get locked on, and they would pull us over. They wouldn't just pull us over. It would be like, let's say we're going this way, and a cop car is coming this way. We would literally look in the mirror and see them do a U-turn just to come up behind us. And then, after we got pulled over, they would have us sitting on the curb, and they would search the van. They would give some stupid reason, oh, there was a string hanging off the back, or oh, the light on your. They'd have their butt covered, basically. They would come up with an easy excuse on why they pulled us over, right? But every time it was noticeable. It was just noticeable. But here's the thing: since I had rode with George Acuna, who was Hispanic, and we never got pulled over. And then I did the same thing with me and my friend Bob, and we always got pulled over. It wasn't about the race, because it was the same type race thing, right? So it was about the beat up old van. The van looked like these guys must be up to no good. That's what the van looked like. And every time they would just, anytime there was a cop in even the near vicinity, if they caught sight of that van, they'd pull us over. So I can actually be assured that we weren't pulled over because of our race, because I know the difference between riding with George and riding with Bob. The only difference, really, when it comes to the race, there was no difference, because the race, it had to do with how nice the car was. If the cops see a nice car, they're just like, they don't think of it. But if they see a beat up old van, well, you're getting pulled over. Oh man, this one time, this cop, they decided to search me, man. He was very, very detailed, and in his search, he really wanted to find out what was up. And he didn't do a thing, but when he was like going to my legs and all that stuff, I was like, are you sure you shouldn't buy me dinner before this? What's going on? Okay, so number 15. I can assure you that I've never been pulled over because of my race. I've only been pulled over because I was poor. Cha-ching! 15 out of 15. Can I easily buy posters, postcards, pictures, books, greeting cards, dolls, toys, and children's magazines featuring people of my race? And that is a definitely yes. Oh man, that is a 100% yes. I can definitely do that, because like I said, I went on the trip. I drove from Texas to Washington State, and all along the way, like the postcards, pictures, jewelry. It was all Native American. You stop at a truck stop or a rest stop or a casino, and I went both ways. I traveled both ways. One way I went up through Oklahoma. So I went up to the 70, made a left, went to Colorado, made a right turn up north, went to Wyoming, Utah, and then Idaho, Oregon, Washington State. On the way back, I went Washington, Oregon, California, went over to Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. So, and every time I stopped, if there was a gift shop, it was filled with Native American stuff, Native American postcards, Native American jewelry, Native American clothing, T-shirts with famous Native American people on them. So yes, absolutely, I can easily buy posters, postcards, pictures, books, greeting cards, dolls, toys, and children's magazines featuring people of my race. Yes, I can. That's number 16. Cha-ching! 16 out of 16. Okay. I can choose blemish cover or bandages in flesh color and have them more or less match my skin. Now, I've never tried. I just buy normal bandages. I think this is my first no on this. I think this is the first one where I can honestly say no. I've never seen Native American bandages it's not really. I'm not really that dark. Maybe I can find bandages. I just never tried. I would say this is the one. I've never seen bandages or what is it? A blemish cover. I've never used blemish cover in flesh. But I know what they mean. I know what they're talking about. And have them more or less match my skin. I'm gonna say this one. I've never seen Native American skin colored bandages, and if they made them, they would probably go out of business because it would be called racist, because you can't call somebody redskin. Then if you make redskin bandages, people would protest. It would be considered racist. It would just be, nowadays it would just, redskin bandages, it's like, oh boy, they would get in so much trouble for that. Okay. So no, 17. So I'm 16 out of 17. So no cha-chung. I can do well in challenging situations without being called a credit. Yeah. Yes, I can. I can do that. I've never. This is so bad. Trust me, I've never been called a credit to my race, and probably never will. I don't know if that says more about me or society, but I've never been called a credit to my race. You can take that to the bank. Okay. I can walk into a classroom and know I will not be the only member of my race. Again, everybody has Native American in them. I already went over this. I can enroll. So we're at night. That was 19. So I'm 18 out of 19. I missed my cha-chung. 18. Cha-chung. 19. Cha-chung. Okay. I can enroll in a class at college and be sure that the majority of my professors will be of my race. Again, same thing. Everybody has Native American unless they're from a different country. So yes, I can do that, and they'll have be part Native American or to one degree or another. So yes, so that's 19 out of 20. Oh, 20. Cha-chung. Okay. So that's 19 out of 20. That's 95%. See, I'm a credit to my race. I did percentages in my head, huh? Yeah. And so, by the way, some of these questions, like, what is it? Man, that's really bad. Some of these questions are really bad. When I look at number 6, though, this is future Richard, by the way. I'm editing myself in. I was thinking about this test after I finished it. Number 6. I said some of these questions are kind of racist. I can go into a music shop and count on finding music of my race that represented, into a supermarket and find the food I grew up with, into a hairdresser shop and find someone who can deal with my hair. I was thinking this one specifically is really racist because what are they going to say next? I can go into a liquor store and find malt liquor and tequila and firewater. It's like this, you're making assumptions about people I thought we weren't supposed to do that. I thought we weren't supposed to make assumptions about people that. Yeah, this question's really kind of bad. I had to come back and re-record this section because I was like, wait a minute, am I going to let this one slide? This question is actually pretty bad. Future Richie out. So 19 out of 20 is 95%, and that makes me, it's an A, almost an A plus, because the one I didn't get, which is bandages, is really a silly thing because it would actually be more racist if they had red-skinned bandages. That would be really bad. So I'll give myself a solid A. It's probably an A plus. So I did really well on this test. I thought I wasn't sure how many I was going to get. I'd heard, because of the Brad and Lex, I'd heard some of these questions, but they stopped. They were like, we can't take this. These questions are just. They were a lot more offended than I was by these questions. I'm very, very seldom offended by anything. So yeah, 19 out of 20. Yes. That's great. I'm doing really well. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was a learning experience. And I would be curious if any of you were to take this test, how you guys would do. Just tell if you're, if just put it in the comments below if you're interested in taking this test, and just say what rate, if you're okay with it. Say, I'm black or I'm Hispanic or whatever, and then to see how well you did on this white privilege test. I did really well. This was really great. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. This is a little bit different. If you did enjoy it, hit like or subscribe. Yada yada yada. Until I see you next time, have a blessed day.